out of the ordinary insights. Brought to you by Investec Specialist Bank.
Welcome back to Captains of Industry. Still with me in studio is the man at the helm of FNB, Michael Jordaan. Let's talk a little bit about what you do on a day-to-day basis. What happens when you walk into the office? In fact, what time do you walk into the office?
I try and be there at 8, which is not the earliest riser. I'd rather prefer working late, until late at night.
What is late at night? I'm going to get all the details.
It's usually when I start getting hungry and blood sugar level gets to a level where you actually feel you have to go, which can easily be 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. But I don't mind doing business breakfast or business dinners. In fact, my diary is usually filled from early in the morning till late at night. And I love it. I mean, I have the opportunity to meet some very, very interesting people. I get inspired by meeting people all the time. So my job is the same as I think most professionals. We have meetings, we do emails, we write letters, we make phone calls. It's merely the content of that which changes. In a routine environment, it's stimulating and fun. The things that really make me worry is when you get that funny phone call and something has gone wrong. Let's say the big client has missed a debt payment, or there's an interruption in ATMs or something like that. And then suddenly it can get very panicky.
Warren Buffett has stated that he starts his day with a clear diary. Do you think that's pie in the sky thinking? I mean, could that possibly be a reality?
Look, I think he must have one of the nicest jobs in the world, because he's not operationally responsible for anything. And he can think, he can apply his mind. And he says that the way that he actually gets his business is the phone rings, But I think he's in a very, very privileged situation. For most of us, we are interrupted all the time. I know that the first thing I do when I wake up, before even drinking a cup of tea, I catch up on my emails, I look at what's happening in world news, I look on what's happening at Twitter, and it's also the last thing that I do at night. I don't think that's particularly healthy, because your brain keeps on being active, but that's our lives. That's what modern technology has done to us.
I recently spoke to Yanni Mouton, who said, obviously the chairman of PSG, who said that for him, a great entrepreneur, and I'm not necessarily saying you're an entrepreneur at this stage, but you've got a very entrepreneurial culture at FNB, is that you work in the business during the day and you dream about it at night. That sounds pretty much as though that's where you're going.
He's probably right. And you do wake up in the middle of the night, and sometimes you've got cool ideas and sometimes you worry about things, but it is all encompassing. I don't believe that it's that easy to get a work-life balance.
Well, you've come to my next question,
yes,
because you don't believe that it's all-encompassing. Do you think that those people out there who say they've got a work-life balance are just plain lying? Because there are people out there who say they've got it, and I can't see how you can achieve it.
They possibly just do a much better job at it than I do, and it's possible, I would think. But nowadays, to be really good at something, to try and be world-class in something, you've got to compensate for it by cutting other things out in your life. I don't believe that Roger Federer became the best tennis player in the world and yet had a great social life and yet, fulfilled his academic ambitions, etc. He focused on tennis. And so it'll be in business, or people who climb high mountains, or the deepest diver into the sea. You have to make trade-offs in your life. And it's one of the things that I feel quite sad about it. I may have done relatively well in the business world, but in the process have neglected some of my friends and family. And I'm just trying to work very hard to at least not do that with my family.
How are you managing, if I can probe a little bit more in terms of that balance with your family? It's a well-known fact that your family's in Stellenbosch and you commute to Johannesburg. That can't be easy.
It's very good for the job, that I have to say, because it does mean that when I'm here actually with one pursuit in mind, and that's work. So from the moment I land till when I leave, apart from a bit of sleep and even less gym, I'm dedicated to work. And then what I do have to do is apply discipline over weekends. So I do whatever my kids want me to do. If they say, read this book now, or take me bowling, or go to a movie, or whatever it is, I definitely make sure that the time that I do spend with them is quality time.
Another love of yours, and again, it's on your Twitter profile, is winemaking. You also love drinking wine. Where did this originate, and how long has it been going on?
Well, first of all, I have to say that my wife is actually in charge of the entire farming venture, Rose.
So you can't claim the winemaking?
I can't claim the winemaking. What I am is a sleeping partner, and that allows me the privilege of transferring funds from time to time and to make some suggestions which usually aren't taken very seriously. But what I do enjoy is the lifestyle of living on the farm. It really is quite special. So for me, the way my life actually feels is very hard work during the week, and then actually holiday every weekend in a completely different environment.
Michael, the biggest challenge, let's put aside the personal work-life balance. What is your biggest challenge at the office?
I think it's these new competitors that are coming from us, that could be somebody in a garage somewhere that right now is inventing a technology that could make much of banking obsolete. So you have to be paranoid and think that you have to stay ahead of the curve, rather innovate more than less, just to make sure that we remain relevant.
If you are going to be leaving the bank relatively soon, as you have stated, what are you going to be doing?
You know, I feel a little bit disloyal even thinking about it. It's true that I'm now in my 9th year at the bank, and towards the end of next year.
In fact, I haven't clarified how much longer you actually have.
Yes, it's still at least a year and a half to go. So I'm still completely committed. But I think what I would like to do at some stage is hand over clearly to somebody who would be better at it than me, to a good team. Having built a lot of initiatives in the bank that will still run for a couple of years, and right now I've got good visibility that there are big initiatives still coming. And then I think it would be a good time to take a bit of time off and not jump into the next thing immediately. You know, we don't have enough time to really reflect in life, so I'd like to at least just have a little break and think about things. Yes.
The other question that you've been asked regularly, and I've put it to you on a number of occasions, is what about a tie-up with an international partner? And obviously that would be at a holding level, and it'd all be, it would be a complicated structure. But do you think that that could potentially be in FirstRand's life down the line?
Right now, our sense is probably not. And that's really because most of the international banks are drawing in their horns. You find that the European banks have lots of issues to deal with. They're not adequately capitalized. They're even withdrawing out of the continent. And it's actually tough to see corporate action on that scale happening. We're quite a big bank. The market capitalization catapults us into quite a large bank in global terms, as with the other big 4 banks in South Africa. That doesn't mean that we would resist it if it makes strategic sense and if the price that they were to offer is correct. So it's very important that we will ultimately do what is best for shareholders. But I just think at this stage it's unlikely. As a management team, of course, we like the fact that we can determine our own destiny. For example, that if we wanted to, you could expand all over the world. The one disadvantage of being acquired by a big foreign bank is that you become relegated to their Africa or their Southern Africa strategy, and it's no longer in your destiny to decide what you want to do.
You throw forward to the term well capitalized. We know that's an advantage of South African banks has got us through the financial crisis. You've also been quoted as saying that by 2019, South African banks will be better capitalized than most Western banks. Do you stand by that fact? Well,
you've really done your homework. What in fact I did say is that even today, we are already better capitalized than is required of those banks by 2019. So it's nearly as if we have fortress balance sheets. And there's a significant advantage to this. In the rest of the world, taxpayer money is being used to bail out banks and banking executives, I may add. Now, South Africa, we have the exact opposite. We not only don't need to be bailed out, we in fact are big taxpayers in the country. And so we're adding to growth in the economy where banks in other jurisdictions are actually detracting from it.
You've also been quoted as saying that you are not adverse to a wealth tax. Can you elaborate on that thinking?
Look, I think it's important that if you want to get the right people and you have a system of merit, that there are adequate incentives. How exactly you structure it and make sure that it's long-term and it's aligned with sustainable profit is something which will occupy consultants and REMCOs for a long time. But personally, I love this country. I want to be part of it. I want my kids to grow up and stay in this country. And I do recognize that the inequalities in society are huge and that something needs to be done about it. And if the answer is a wealth tax, I don't in principle have a problem with that, with one proviso, and that is that the money is well spent. I do think a big concern of South Africans now is increasing corruption and that they're not necessarily seeing the value for the money.
Capping of CEOs' salaries, is that potentially a solution?
I think the wealth tax or a higher marginal income tax is probably a better solution than to merely put a cap on it, because any form of cap, artificial cap, I think, also takes a little bit away of the incentive and the initiative to do the right things.
It would perhaps lead to more entrepreneurs in the country, which is what you've also said. If something came in along those lines, it would probably push that entrepreneurial culture even harder.
That's true. That could be a positive side effect.
How are we catering for the entrepreneurs in this country? We know that they are beleaguered, especially in the current uncertain environment. They find it very difficult to access capital. There aren't a number of venture capitalists out there. Angel financiers are like hen's teeth. Do you think that we really are starting to cater for the entrepreneur, and perhaps you can speak from your experience at FNB.
I recently read a book which fundamentally changed my mind about entrepreneurship. It's called Startup Nation. It actually deals with Israel. And it's not that well known, but Israel has the highest number of startups per capita, highest number of startups per GDP. I'm not just talking bed and breakfast, which are also important, but technology type of startups where you need specific intellect. And when they delve into the reasons for all these startups, it is a very entrepreneurial culture, first of all. It's one where they have role models. It is one where you have angel investors, but many of them start on a shoestring. Finance is not that important. And more often than not, it's education. So I think so many of South Africa's ills can be traced back to inadequate education. And that includes educating people on how to do books and how to budget family income and expenses. So that I really think is the core of the problem, is educate people, get skills. And then I do think we have it in ourselves. We have lots and lots of entrepreneurs in the country, and with a little bit of reduction in red tape, maybe some more finance from banks, I think I need to acknowledge that, but most importantly, role models in education.
Are you making inroads with entrepreneurs?
Yes, we are. We have a number of services where we do everything from mentorships to helping people do their books for free, in instant online accounting, by helping to open the account opening process, to make payments easier. You can now pay people just using a pay wallet. What we really are working at is making the entire registration process, from starting a company to registering for the various taxes and so on, as seamless as possible, because entrepreneurs really don't want to spend their lives doing admin. So yes, we're trying to do our bit. Can we do more? I'm pretty sure we can.
You've mentioned that lack of education or poor education is responsible for most of our woes. How concerned are you about our unemployment rate sitting back at 25%? That's a quarter of the population.
No, it's very concerning, particularly if you consider that the youth unemployment rate is even higher. You're sitting with disaffected youth, and as we know, this is what caused riots in North Africa. Now, what we also have in South Africa is we have one of the largest social redistribution systems through the grants that are paid. Some 14 million South Africans are being paid. Paying grants to people has disadvantages. It makes them dependent. It actually reduces entrepreneurial spirit. But by and large, I think the benefits of doing so still override all those negatives. Were it not for us paying 14 million social grants, I believe we would have a very unstable country.
I don't want to end on such a negative note.
Yes.
Your final word of advice to entrepreneurs out there listening to this show, having come from a corporate background, and perhaps you're going to enter into the entrepreneur fray once you've left the helm of FNB, what would salient advice here be?
I'd say resilience. I think if you look at people that have been successful in any endeavor everywhere, the only thing that they really have is resilience. The ability to take those knocks and to find strength either in themselves or with their friends. And if you have a dream, you can make it come true, but you need resilience.